Hi, it's the M.L.M for the Soul channel. I do have a new topic for today. Before I begin, I just would like to say, may the words and expressions of my mouth and the thoughts and meditations of my heart find favor and acceptance, before you, Hashem. And this is the continuation of the Mesillas Yesharim, which is called the Way of the Upright, also called Path of the Just, by the Ramchal of Moshe Chaim Lutzato. And this is the Yafa edition from Art School. And this is what the Sefer looks like if you still haven't seen it yet, because we're up to part, or I should say I'm up to part, sharing with you part number 105. And this is the last chapter, Baruch Hashem, which is called, in Hebrew, BeEzrat Midat HaKedushah, the trait of Kedushah, which is holiness. So he has a little introduction here to it at first. So he says, although, and I just want to say I'm going to just also be doing this in smaller sections. I was thinking at probably when I first started doing this video on this Sefer, which was already at least a couple years or more, I ought to have also probably split it up into shorter, what we call like sound bites, so that you could absorb it better. So hopefully if you go back to watch those older videos, if you watch from the beginning, then you'll just, like maybe pause it and then come back to it. Okay, so now back to here. So what he says. Although Kedushah, which is commonly translated as holiness, is not the last step outlined in the Baraisa of Rav Pinchas ben Yair, which I talked about in the introduction, so you'd have to go back to that video, which is a long time ago, so you'd have to go back in the channel. It is the last chapter of this Sefer. The Mesillas Yesharim is a guide for one's efforts in gradually elevating his service of Hashem. But as Ramchal explains in this chapter, Kedushah is the last step that a person can even begin to attain by his own efforts. The others, which are Ruach HaKodesh, which is divine inspiration, and Techias HaMesim, which is resurrection of the dead, and even the consummation of Kedushah itself, are not in one's ability to achieve. They are entirely a gift from Hashem. The breathtaking spiritual level of Kedushah, as defined by Ramchal in this chapter, is understandably beyond the reach of most people. Ramchal points out below that only those who have attained all of the previous levels discussed in this Sefer are capable of even undertaking the pursuit of authentic Kedushah. So that's crucial. Don't forget, he's built you up to this point, so he's saying that most of us will never get there. So just to be aware that, that's okay. This level does, however, represent the goal that Ramchal set in chapter 1. As the life's objective of a sincere servant of Hashem. Utter dveikus, which is called cleaving to Hashem. As Ramchal explained there, the true place for this dveikus is in the world to come. And one who does his utmost to attain it in this world will merit its full measure in the world to come. Kedushah represents the highest level one can attain in this world through his own efforts. Thus, this chapter depicts the culmination of the Chassid's goal that is the subject of this work. And the commentary says here, to see chapter 1, notes 9 through 13. I'm not going back there, but again, if you want to go back to my videos to find where that is, because I didn't actually write which chapters I was doing in the beginning. And that's also something I wish I had done, but there's too many now to go back and do that, so I apologize for that. And the commentary continues. Some of the concepts introduced in this chapter are extremely esoteric and touch upon the hidden wisdom of the Torah. Because he wrote Mesillas Yesharim for all people, Ramchal here gives only the briefest treatment to these ideas. And also he puts in parentheses, they put in parentheses here, Michtav Me'Eliyahu, volume 3, page 153. In this farm that Ramchal devoted to the explanation of hidden areas of Torah wisdom, he elaborates more fully on the foundations and ramifications of the lofty level of Kedushah. And then it continues, even for those distant from the attainment of Kedushah. There is great value in learning about this sublime level of spiritual devotion. While not everyone may scale the highest peak, the knowledge that it is there and the sight of it, even from afar, can serve as a source of inspiration for each person's service of Hashem at whatever level it may be. Again, because most of us won't get to that, but still, it's nice, something to look towards and to maybe inspire you anyway, even if you can't reach it, which is fine. Then he continues. Ramchal begins the chapter now describing, by way of introduction, a unique quality of Kedushah. The essence of Kedushah is a dual one. That is, its initial phase is one of divine service. through one's own work, but its culmination is the reward given by heaven for one's avodah, their service. Its initial phase consists of one's own effort, but its culmination is a gift from heaven. This means that the initial phase of Kedushah consists of the holiness with which a person sanctifies himself to the extent that he can. But its culmination consists of the holiness with which heaven sanctifies him by granting him the qualities of Kedushah that one cannot achieve on his own. The commentary here says, as Ramchal explains below, a human being cannot attain true Kedushah on his own. One can only begin by exerting the proper effort toward attaining Kedushah. Then he will be rewarded by being granted Kedushah from Hashem. And then he continues, this is the meaning of that which the sages of blessed memory said in Yoma 39a, if a person sanctifies himself to some extent, heaven sanctifies himself a great deal. If a person sanctifies himself below on earth, heaven sanctifies him from on high. So in Hebrew, it's Adam Kadesh Atzmo Ma'at Makdishim Oso Harbe Milamata Makdishim Oto Milamala. So that's what it says. Then he continues, Ramchal outlines a basic definition of Kedushah, which he will use to further explain the nature of its duality. The effort to achieve Kedushah is aimed at accomplishing that a person be completely separated and detached from physicality, and always cleave on all occasions and at all times to his God. And the commentary here says when it says, quote, all occasions, refers to all the various circumstances of life, and, quote, all times refers to all times of the day, constantly and without let-up. That's and also from mussar or Mesillas. And then he continues, this utter detachment from physicality and complete attachment to Hashem is reminiscent of the spiritual nature of the angels. It is in this sense that the prophets whose prophecy is a result of a great attachment to Hashem. And commentary says here, the prophet has achieved Kedushah to the fullest degree possible, and he is granted prophecy as a result of his intense attachment to Hashem. And it says also, see Baruch Hashem chapter 3:3. Okay. And it continues. So, result of great attachment to Hashem are referred to as, quote, angels. So this is what the prophets are. As it is stated regarding Aharon in Malachi 2:7. I'll say read in Hebrew first. Ki sifsei chohen yishmru das, the Torah yivakshu mipihu. For the lips of the Kohen, which are talking about Aaron, safeguard knowledge, and people seek teaching from his mouth. And then there's a commentary here. I'm just going to go back because I stopped to read that verse from Malachi. When it's talking about Aaron, it says here in the commentary that Aaron served as a prophet for the Jewish people in Egypt. You see that in Shemos Rabbah 3:16, and also in the wilderness in Vayikra 10 verse 8. Okay, and then it continues. For he is an quote angel of Hashem, master of legions. And it is likewise stated regarding the improper behavior of the people toward the prophets at the end of the first Beis Hamikdash, from Divrei Hayamim 2:36 verse 16, and I'll just read that in English. And they insulted the quote angels of Hashem, etc., thus referring to the prophets as angels. Ramchal returns now to the description of the kadosh, the one who has achieved Kedushah. Even while he is engaged in the physical activities that are necessary for him on account of the needs of his body, his soul does not waver from its cleaving on high. And the commentary here says that in chapter 19, as part of the description of Hasidus, Ramchal listed Devekus, cleaving to Hashem, as one of the elements of love of Hashem. As he explained there at note 118, on the level of Hasidus, Devekus requires only that one be completely attached to Hashem when he is praying or performing a mitzvah. When a person reaches Kedushah, however, he is completely attached to Hashem even while involved in worldly matters. Thus, Kedushah is the pinnacle of Devekus, cleaving to Hashem. Meaning, first, the cleaving, according to Hasidus, the Devekus is only during when you're praying or doing a mitzvah. But now, Kedushah is a higher level where it's at all times, when you're involved even in worldly matters. An additional commentary says that Ramban writes an explanation of the verse and to cleave to him in Devarim 11:22. Cleaving Devekus includes that you should keep Hashem and your love of him in mind constantly. Your thoughts should not depart from him even when you walk on the way, when you retire, and when you arise. This can proceed to the point that one's conversation with people is only with his mouth and tongue, but his heart is not with them, rather he is before Hashem. It is possible with people at this level that their soul is, quote, bound up in the bond of life, even during their lifetimes, for they themselves, even in their physical bodies, are an abode for the Shekhinah. While Ramban speaks only of one's heart being, quote, not with them, rather before Hashem, Ramchal below adds a dimension to the concept of being attached to Hashem, while engaged in earthly activities, and he explains the concept of being, quote, an abode for the Shekhinah. And then he continues. Ramchal now continues here, and he says, this is as was stated by David HaMelech amid all of his worldly troubles in Tehillim 63 verse 9. In Hebrew it says, Dav kan nafshi acharecha ki tamcha yeminecha. My soul cleaves after you, you is Hashem, your right hand, again this is talking yours Hashem, and right hand again is not a real right hand, but just so you know that's how they spoke, because to get the idea, because we're on a different level, right? So your right hand has supported me. So we don't think of Hashem as having a right hand, but again, it's language that we understand. Okay, and the commentary here says that is you meaning Hashem have supported me in my effort to cleave to you, according to Ibn Ezra. Since, as mentioned, this level is unattainable without divine assistance. An additional commentary to finish up here. The verse cited by Ramchal expressing David HaMelech's great attachment to Hashem is part of the psalm that demonstrates this concept with remarkable imagery. Fleeing from his pursuers, David found himself wandering in the parched wilderness of the Judean desert. But even in that extreme condition, it was not for water or physical security that he pined. The passage begins, a psalm by David, when he was in the wilderness of Yehuda. O God, you are my God, I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. Again, the you all the time that I'm saying is now Hashem. My soul thirsts for you, my flesh longs for you in a parched and thirsty land with no water. While any other wanderer in that barren place would focus on his thirst for water, David could think of nothing other than, quote, my soul thirsts for you. Even his physical body, his flesh, ignored the hostile environment. It was concerned only with its great attachment to Hashem. Quote, my flesh longs for you. Like the kadosh described above, whose closeness to Hashem wavers not an iota, even while he's engaged in the physical world, David's sole focus amid all his physical tribulations was his great attachment to his God. Again, quote, my soul cleaves after you. Ramchal also cites this verse at the end of chapter 1. So I'm going to stop here, and I hope and pray that we'll all merit to live and see the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days and the rebuilding of our final and everlasting Beis HaMikdash. Amen, and thanks for watching.